Hi, welcome to our devotion on Luke chapter 12. And I want to hone in on a little phrase that Jesus uses here in verse 32. This is toward the end of this section on fear, worry, and anxiety. And it's easy to miss this. I touched on it, I think, when I did one of the other devotions, but I want to take some more time and just focus on it. He says in verse 32, fear not. So the issue on his mind is helping us not to fear. He knows we're afraid. He knows that fear is a normal part of living in a fallen world for fallen people. He says, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Now, I just want you to stop for a moment and think about that little phrase, those two words, little flock. It's almost like you could have taken them out and it wouldn't have really changed a lot in terms of the flow. Fear not, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. But Jesus makes a point, it's very brief, but he makes the point of reminding us that we're sheep. Little flock. That's what you really are. Now, why is that important? Well, I think it's important because if you understand the difference between a sheep and a shepherd, then you'll understand what Jesus is getting at here. Think of a shepherd watching over his sheep. His job is to look around, to be aware of all the things that are going on around him. And he's higher up. You know, he's got his staff in his hand, and he's got the height to be able to see and look and see if there are predators around. He knows where he's going, and so he can scope out the green grass, and he can get his sheep there. And so he's a protector, he's a provider. It's his job to think ahead. It's his job to know where they're going and know the future. Now, that's a beautiful picture of God for us. It's his job to know the future. It's his job to control the future and to lead us where he wants us to go. And then consider the sheep. What do the sheep do? Well, the sheep basically put their heads down and they eat. They're not thinking about tomorrow. They're not thinking about where they're going to be, a week from now. And if the shepherd were to try to explain it to them and tell them, they wouldn't understand it anyway. And so their job is primarily to trust the shepherd and, you might say, live in the moment. Just enjoy the fact that you have a shepherd who's taking care of you, and eat, feed. Just don't worry about things that are out of your reach. Don't try to make yourself into something that you're not. And is it possible that one of the things that is causing us so much angst in our modern world today is that we have been told and made to believe that we're more like shepherds than we are like sheep. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a sense in which, as a father of my home, as a pastor, I'm a shepherd. I shepherd people. I have to plan. I have to think ahead, and protect my family. And so there is something does correspond between us and God in that regard. But in relationship to God, we are all sheep. And could it be that we have really bought into an illusion that we're more like shepherds? And that part of the angst and part of the fear that we have is brought about by the idea that we're supposed to be able to control everything around us. And if you're not trusting God as your shepherd, if you don't see him in the picture as somebody who's taking care of you and who's there for you, who's protecting you, who knows where he's taking you, and so you don't have to worry so much about tomorrow or about what's going to happen the next day, then you're going to be more content, you're going to be more at peace, you're going to be able to live more in the moment, in the present. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you should only live for the present and you shouldn't plan, you shouldn't think ahead and those kinds of things. No, what I'm saying is that we really lose something when we're so worried about tomorrow, we're so worried about the future. Just as Jesus says, that's all he's talking about here is don't worry about the future. We get so caught up into that we bring this fear upon ourselves. We take on more than we were created to take on. We're acting more like shepherds than we are like sheep. And much of what we do as in response to the world around us is we're trying to get back into the shepherd's seat again, into the shepherd role again. Because we really believe that if we could just make the right choices, if we could just control things, then we can control the outcome of our lives. And I think that's where a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the fear is coming from. And next time I want to show you a passage, that parallel passage to this, and where Jesus really does bring this out in a very clear way, in a remarkable way. So in the meantime, just be thinking about that. Are you trying to be more like a shepherd, or are you accepting the fact that you really are a sheep and that you do have a shepherd who loves you, who's looking out, he knows where he's going, he knows where he's taking you, he's watching over you, and you can trust him. Thanks for watching.